How you doing, guys? This is Eric from secretoftheinternet.com and rulethewasteland.com. This video I wanted to do about the next 10 guns I would like to get to add to my ever-growing arsenal for personal enjoyment, various purposes, surviving apocalypses, all that stuff. I'm going to go through, some of these are not necessarily an exact make and model, as more of like a category. So far, my strategy for building up the guns that I have, because I've made videos in the past about how you don't really need a bunch of guns, and I've got like 12 or 14 now. I don't remember the exact number, but most of them are not absolutely necessary in that sense. I do like having guns in most of the common calibers, just because I think it could be useful to have a gun that could shoot any type of ammo that you're likely to come across, whether that's a good deal that you find at a garage sale, whether that's something that was given or bequeathed to you, whether it's something you scavenge in a post-apocalyptic zombie wasteland, whatever. I think it's useful to have a gun that can accommodate various types of ammo, just because you never know what's gonna happen. So that's one of the things that's guiding this particular list. The other is that there's some certain capabilities that certain guns have that others don't, or just aren't that good at. So I like to fill out the range that way. You know, you have things like small like rimfires, you have shotguns, you have long-range rifles, different tacticals, rifles, stuff like that, that each are, you know, do a lot of the same things, but they also have unique capabilities. And some of them are just ones that I'm personally interested in, I think would be fun to shoot, or maybe good for concealed carry or some reason like that. It's not even related to necessarily to prepping or preparedness, but it's just some reason that I would like to own one of these guns. So getting the list started, the first thing I'd like to get is a Ruger SR22 with a threaded barrel, because I'd like to get into getting some silencers or suppressors, and I think it'd be a really great gun to do that with, because it becomes very, very quiet. 22s are already not that loud. When you add a suppressor on there, they get exceptionally quiet. Pretty cool. And I have a couple other 22s. I got a 1022 and a Ruger, 2245. And those are both great 22s. I have another little Marlin 22 that is collapsible. It's sort of like the 1022, but not really. So I have a lot of 22s. I have a lot of 22 ammo, and but this is another great one. I wish they had a 22 gun that has higher capacity. There is a Keltec, I believe, 22 pistol that has pretty high capacity, but it's not necessarily recommended for suppressors because of the breach mechanism, the particular way it functions. You can get it for them, but it's not recommended because it can have a little bit of blowback of the gases and debris in your face, which is not ideal. So I'll stick with the 10-round capacity for the SR22. I really like Ruger, and enjoyed I have a bunch of guns from Ruger. I like all their guns. Definitely excited to add another one to my collection, and I think it'd be really fun to get into having suppressors and stuff too, which are not quite as difficult to get as you might think. So that's something that I can't wait to get. I'll suck it up and deal with the 10-round capacity, which isn't a huge deal. If I need a larger capacity 22, I've got the 1022, which you can have magazines up to like 50 rounds, and it's pretty easy to find ones that are 20, 30 rounds. The Banana Clips, the Hot Lips and Steel Lips magazine, things like that. The next one I'd like to get, these are no particular order, by the way, of importance. I just jotted them down. So just because I said the SR22 first is not necessarily going to be the one that I get first, and this one's not necessarily going to be the one that I get second. But the next one on the list is some sort of either high capacity pump shotgun or a auto shotgun. So I really like the Keltec KSG, which is a pump action. It has dual magazine tubes that you can switch between with a lever that allows you to have up to like 14 rounds, I think. So either one of those, or maybe possibly either a Sega auto shotgun, or a, there's another company that makes it, what is it? I have to write that, look at the Senatec, I guess, that sort of has a clone, a Sega clone, Saiga, however you want to say it. And these are both automatic or semi-automatic shotguns that can use magazines, either kind of banana magazines or drum magazines for 12 rounds. So the Keltec KSG has the highest capacity of any of the shotguns that I've ever seen, including the ones with the drum mags, because those usually only go up to 12 rounds. But obviously, once you expend the 14 rounds in the KSG, it takes a little while longer to reload, because if you're going from loose shells or bandolier or something like that into a normal magazine style tube where you're thumbing it in, obviously if you have magazines, you can switch them out a lot more quickly. The KSG also looks pretty badass. It's a little wider than a shotgun. There's been some bizarre instances, I think 2 occasions where someone has shot their hand off with the KSG, but that's because they were either, one of them was the foregrip broke off when they were doing, like, both cases I think involved them doing rapid fire, like where they may even have been holding down the trigger and just pumping it to try and, you know, shoot off as many rounds as possible. And in both cases, their hand came forward, slipping off one out in front of the gun. Another case, the foregrip on the rail actually broke and their hand went in front of the barrel that way. So it's not something that's necessarily an issue with the gun, especially if you're doing slower controlled rate of fire and not shooting if, you know, if your hand slips off. So it's definitely something to watch out for. Certainly seems possible to happen with any really short shotgun like that. So it's not necessarily anything flaw related to the KSG. It's just due to the function, or I mean, I'm sorry, the way it's designed, you have to be careful with it. But that's next on the list. These would be a KSG, Sega, or some similar clone auto shotgun. Next up would be a Springfield XDM, also with a threaded barrel. Something just another 9mm. I've got, I think, 2 9mm now. One is a little Taurus concealable. I forget the exact model number. And then I got a Ruger P89, I believe is the model number. I've always loved Ruger, like I said. This one, however, has a really high capacity. I think about 20 rounds for the XDM. And if you get a threaded barrel, I think it would be really good to have for a home defense gun, because you don't have to worry about reloads, and you, with the suppressor on there, you would not have to worry about ear protection, deafening yourself. You know, if you just jump out of bed, not that that would stop me. You know, right now I have my Kimber Ultra Carry, which I have right here, and it's 45, 3-inch 45. And this is gonna, you know, it's very loud, and it wouldn't stop me from shooting at someone who's inside my house trying to rob me or kill me or whatever, the fact that it would be loud. But it would be nice to not have it be that loud. So if you have that option, it, you know, it'd be great to take advantage of it. And that super high capacity, something like the Kimber or other 1911s don't have nearly the capacity of 20 rounds, even without switching a magazine. That's pretty extensive. Next up would be some kind of revolver, specifically a 357, because that is one of the rounds that I don't have a gun at all that shoots it. I don't have a 357 auto or a 357 Magnum, and I don't have any revolvers at this time either. So I kind of like having a revolver. They're fun to shoot. It'd be really useful and fill a gap in my collection to have a 357. You can also shoot 38 Special, so those are 2 more rounds that I could potentially use, take advantage of. And revolvers can just be cool. One of the ones that I really, really like is the Smith & Wesson. I believe it's the 327 R8. Let me look that up. Yeah, and it is a really cool looking revolver. They also have the, forget the other model, the competition version of the same model. It's a 5-inch barrel, has a mini Picatinny rail under there, which looks really badass. Just a really cool looking gun. It's got an 8-shot capacity, which is pretty dramatic for one of those. It's very uncommon. There may be only 2 others out there that have 8-shot capacity. There's a couple with 7-shot, but it's a very cool gun. Cool looking, functional, quality by Smith & Wesson. Not cheap, comes in around anywhere from $1,000 to $1,100, but it's a quality gun. Great Smith & Wesson 357. Wouldn't mind picking one of those up in the near future. Next up, I already mentioned shotguns for more of like a tactical type shotgun, either an auto shotgun or a high capacity pump like the KSG. One thing I don't have right now, I do have a Mossberg pump, just a regular Mossberg shotgun. I don't have a shotgun that's suitable for skeet or trap shooting, which is really fun to do. The times I go out there, I just rent the guns that they have. Wouldn't mind having one of my own that I can get used to it. Just, you know, have it. If you want to do any hunting type stuff for birds or whatever, that's the gun you would use. You wouldn't want to use a short barreled tactical shotgun. You would want to use a longer barreled actual hunting shotgun. You can maybe have one that accepts different chokes and things like that. So that's not very expensive. It would give me a good capabilities that I don't necessarily have with the collection that I have now. So that's something I'd like to pick up in the future. Don't really have any strong feelings about brands or other styles beyond that it has to be suitable for trap and hunting. So I'm pretty open to do some research and find out, try a few out, see which ones are good, enjoyable, and fall within a decent price. I don't have any strong feelings about it, so nothing there that really I'm looking out for. So I should be wide open to getting a lot of different ones, so there's a lot there that I could be happy with probably. Next up is a simple AK-47. I have an SKS right now, and I've adapted it with the adapter to take detachable magazines as opposed to just the stripper clips in the built-in magazine. So it can take 30 round detachable magazines. It's a little finicky with them though, and but you can still do it. But I have a ton of 7.62 ammo, and I'd like to get an AK-47. I've always liked the AK-47. I've always liked the 7.62 round, and it's just a much better gun overall than the SKS, so I wouldn't mind picking one of those up. I don't really care much beyond that. I like all the different formats and styles. It's so cool that they're making a lot of newer ones now. And they've gone up in price because of different things about not being able to buy different kinds of Russian guns and whatever. So they're more expensive than they were a few years ago, as is everything else when it comes to guns these days. But I'm definitely going to add one at some point, get an AK. Another thing I'd like to get is another Ruger LCP as a backup, and just maybe to carry 2 at a time. It's almost just as easy to carry one of these as it is to carry an extra magazine for it, because you have to have some sort of belt clip or ankle holster or something to carry the magazine. Might as well make it a whole nother LCP. This one I got incredibly cheap. This is pretty much my daily carry gun, and this one, as you can see, it's you know, definitely used, but it works fine. Shot at a bunch of the range. Let's see if I can get the focus. But it's not going to want to focus on me. Anyways, but you can see the signs of wear and dust and stuff like that, but nothing crazy. And I got this for like 170 bucks or something like that, so it's a good deal. But I'd like to pick up another one at some point just to have backup, maybe carry both at once, things like that. It'd be cool to have more than one. So I just showed you my Kimber 1911, which is a 3-inch ultra carry. I would love, love, love at some point to get a set, like a matching set of full-size 5-inch barrel 1911s with like some compensators on here, maybe some cool skeletonized grips or something like that. Use some cool holsters, just walk around like a badass. It's obviously something that's definitely not high on my list, especially considering the price that I would have to spend for something like that. Be anywhere from like the $2,500 to $5,000 range to get 2 of those in the way that I would want them. 2 quality ones with this slight modification, things like that. But it's definitely something that I'd like to do at some point. Absolutely just because I like it. No real reason beyond that. One thing that I've been looking at also, which actually is coming out very soon, is there's this company called Heiser, which makes these ridiculous little Derringers that shoot either a .223 or even a 7.62 round. It's a tiny pistol, one-shot Derringer that actually shoots a 7.62 by 39 called the Pocket AK and the Pocket AR, which shoots a .223. Ridiculous guns. I'm gonna have to get my hands on one of those and shoot it, but that's not what I'm talking about. They actually just, same company's coming out with, supposedly in December it's being released, the slimmest semi-automatic 45 pistol that's ever been made. It's a tiny little, basically the same size as, not much bigger than the LCP or other guns like it, except it is a 45 automatic. Really interesting, probably not very fun to shoot, but if you can carry a 45 with this just as easily as an LCP or a P32 or whatever, or LC9 or something, and have the same amount of rounds, but you're shooting 45 hollow points instead of the 380 auto, that'd be pretty cool and pretty worthwhile. So I'm definitely want to check out that gun. It's pretty cool looking, very industrial look to it because they had to make it for function, and form follows that. So when you have to cram everything in there into such a small package, it necessitates certain design restrictions and everything. So it's an interesting looking gun. Definitely want to try it out. When that comes out, I'll be looking to add to my collection at some point. The next one, and like I said, these are not in any particular order, so last but certainly not least, is some sort of legit quote-unquote sniper rifle. The only real long-range rifle I have now is a 308 Remington 700 VTR, which I really like. The 308 round, there's nothing wrong with it, but I definitely want to get into the much bigger long-range shells, something like either a 300 Winchester Mag or the 338 Lapua Magnum or even a 50 caliber, something like that. Probably like the 338 seems to be significantly cheaper than the 50 cal. It has a flatter trajectory at most ranges, you know, so the ballistics are a little better in that respect. Doesn't have quite the power out at the absurd ranges, but I mean, how realistically you're not going to actually be shooting anything at like 3,300 yards. So what the ballistics are at that range are mostly just a dick measuring contest at that point, because you're not going to be making any effective shots at 3,000 yards or something. So to say that the 50 cal can kill a deer there when the Lapua can only shoot it, effectively kill deer out to 1,800 yards or something is mostly a moot point. And to have a much flatter trajectory in most of those ranges, I think is useful, and that extra money you save with the rounds being slightly expensive, something like $3 to $5 as opposed to $5 to $10 for the 50 cal. So that I think makes it more realistic. And you can certainly stop vehicles and everything just as easily with the 338 or 300 Winchester mag or something like that as you can with the 50 cal. So it's really cool round, the 50 cal. I've shot it before and I really like it. And one day when I win the lottery, definitely pick up one of those. But in the meantime, I'd like to get something in the 300 mag or the 338 range for real long distance shooting. Not just 100 to 300 yards, but something in the 5 to 1,000 yards. First of all, I would have to find somewhere where I actually go shoot at 500 to 1,000 yards, which around here I don't really have a place. I would have to find someone who has property and things like that. There's no range anywhere near me that has anything over 200 yards. So right now the 308 is perfectly fine for that. I can keep my shot groups in a quarter with the Remington and with the Leupold sight on there. So that certainly has any functional capabilities out to 200 or 300 yards. It's going to be hard to beat the setup I already have. Obviously, if you're talking about strictly marksmanship for marksmanship's sake, it's not up there. That gun isn't up there in terms of being perfected. But it's an $700, $700 to $800 gun. Obviously, if you're talking about real world shooting stuff, does it really matter if you aim for the guy's eye and you hit the left side of his eyeball instead of the middle? Like that shit doesn't really matter. That's only for just perfecting marksmanship as a hobby or a craft. Isn't really that applicable to real world stuff when you're talking about, half or quarter minute of angle improvements in accuracy at up to 200 or 300 yards. And in most real world situations that are not like military or serious shit hit the fan situations, you're never going to be shooting at anything more than 100 yards away anyway. There's just not very many scenarios where that's possible. I certainly would like to do it just for the hobby, the skill, and I just enjoy it. The long range shooting is really cool, so I'd like to get into that more with the bigger round, and so I plan on doing that at some point. But those guns are very expensive to get a good one. The rounds are very expensive, so it may be a while before I start doing that. But those are the next 10 guns that I would like to get to add to my collection. Let me know what you guys think, what's on your list. If you have any of these, what your thoughts are on them, and talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.